Hello, and welcome to Beyond Biotech, the weekly podcast from Labiotech. I'm Dylan Kassane, and this is episode 193 for the podcast. Our guest today is Thierry Laugel, managing partner of Kurma and chairman of Argobio. With a PharmD PhD in pharmacology and an INSEAD MBA, Thierry has spent more than 2 decades bridging cutting-edge science and commercial success, first in pharma R&D, and then as co-founder of Kurma Partners, and now leading Argobio's unique venture builder model. Since raising 50 million euros in 2021, Argobio has co-founded and accelerated several companies from top European academic labs. 3 of them, Enodia, Laigo Bio, and Elkedonia, have already closed seed rounds totaling more than 43 million euros, advancing novel platforms in targeted protein degradation, precision membrane protein degraders, and non-hallucinogenic neuroplasticity enhancers for depression. In this episode, Thierry shares how Argobio reduces execution risk, embeds operational expertise, and turns promising science into investable companies that can compete worldwide. Let's get started. Thierry, welcome to Beyond Biotech.
Thank you, Dylan.
Thierry, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your background and what first drew you into the life sciences world?
Yes, with pleasure. So it's already a long history and background. I'm almost 60 years old, so I started my studies in pharmacy. It was an easy choice or a very complex choice because both my father and my mother were pharmacists. So you see, I don't know how much independence I had and autonomy and maturity I had when I made this choice, but it was not a choice I regret, and did my pharmacy degree, and thereafter chose to enter the science and the research world. I am pharmacologist by education, and spent my first years of my career in the industry as a scientist. That I don't regret, because for me pharmacology is still my pedigree, my background, and the way I can smell and have my specific view and analysis on a new drug. I think this is still very helpful, and it will always be a way for me to have a real sense of what a drug can be or is expected to be. Even 30 years later, a drug still have to be effective, to be non-toxic, and have a therapeutic index, which is what I have been educated to demonstrate. So this was my start, and definitely life science has been my passion, but always a patient, and always been passionate about innovation and science. So even 35 years later, I'm still super excited when I see a new discovery, a new paper, and I just feeling that we can transform something and find out something really innovative that can transform people life, but also just science. It's already very important. I'm still super excited.
Well, you mentioned your background in pharmacology, but you've also got an MBA from INSEAD. You seem to have the science and the business side covered.
Yes, correct. I entered the INSEAD when I was actually 30 years old. I have my first industry experience, as I said, as an industrial scientist. I was luckily hired by a French mid-size company, which was actually a great company at the time, whose name was Fournier. Fournier was a family-owned small business, a few thousand people, but growing very fast, and who was one of these very small firm growing from nowhere to a global firm, developing a blockbuster drug that was successfully partnered with AbbVie in the US and with Takeda in Japan. And it was just it was not definitely not a biotech company, but a fast-growing pharma company. And they were actually providing experience opportunity to young people, and I was sent to Japan for 5 years and was seconded to Takeda, to the Takeda subsidiary that was in charge of developing the drug for Japan. So great experience, definitely not biotech, but very, very interesting experience with a lot of autonomy and a bit of a cultural shock, which was part of the experience. So when I completed this first journey, coming back to Europe, I had this opportunity and thought it was a good stop to enter INSEAD and to meet people from different horizons that I had a very special experience, but a very special experience in the sense that it was not it was a different experience, but definitely not a global experience. Being a young scientist in Japan was being a young scientist in Japan. It was nothing else. And it was very good for me to be emerged in something that was marketing itself as a global business school. Already at the time, it was the mid-90s. I think there were 50 nationalities, 50 people from many different countries. So this was really, really great experience. And it was also the way, probably the mid-90s were a good timing also to come back to Europe, because it was where biotech in Europe were meaning something. People were experiencing not only innovations, but innovative companies, startups that was started and funded the way Americans invented 20 or 15 years before. So it was actually a very good timing for me to be in a business school and to come back to Europe to have a chance to experience what a biotech company could be.
If we fast forward a little bit then to 2009, you founded Kurma Partners. What was the vision behind starting your own firm at that time?
Yes, I was already exposed to venture capital because after my graduation at INSEAD, I started first as a scientist, R&D portfolio manager in a small biotech company based in Lyon. That was Flamel at the time, which was one of the very first French companies that was listed on Nasdaq. So I had this offered me a chance to be in a growing biotech company. So another set of experience, but very, very soon after I entered the VC world, got hired by the venture arm of what is now called BPI France, the sovereign French development bank, and then joined another firm. But at the end, as you said, 2009, I decided to form my own firm. VC business is a small business. Is a business for people who master their own destiny, and this is a long-term business. So it's pretty hard. I did it before for a sovereign fund, which actually is very long-term, but is not necessarily financial return focused. And thereafter, I was hired by a big insurance company. And you can imagine that a big financial institution is definitely not in the business of long-term return for its customers. So it's a different business, and especially can't deal with these niche sectors like biotech or venture investment. So when you want to develop long term and steadily in this industry, there is probably no other choice, or there was probably no other choice than just do it your own and try to set your own goals, which are definitely long term, based on the constant investment on people, on long term delivery of quality of investments and eventually a good financial return. So not easy to start. I still meeting regularly people who start to launch their own business in this industry, and it's definitely a difficult journey. I tried twice and succeeded the second time. So this means that I failed for the first time, which was in 2005. I will not describe too much, but just to say that this starting a new business is difficult everywhere, even in the venture financial business. So 2005 I failed. 2009, it's together with one co-founder. We were fortunate enough to be able to complete and to succeed the first fundraising and the first fund, which was mostly committed by two institutional investors, one being BPI France, again the French capital development sovereign fund of France, and the second one being Natixis private equity, a big French bank. But we were very, very lucky because 2009, everybody remembers that it was the last and very pretty severe financial crisis, and it has been a matter of a few days to get the commitments of our sponsor, because a few days later, Natixis private equity stopped making any new commitment into venture for I don't know how many years, but many years. So we were very, very fortunate. That's why it's you have to be very humble in starting a business, and this one maybe even a bit more than others.
Thierry, the reason that I wanted to have you on the show was to talk a little bit about one of the more recent businesses that you've founded, which is the Argobio studio. It launched in 2021. It had 50 million to support disruptive translational research. What was the core problem in European biotech that you and your partners were setting out to solve when you launched that business?
Yes. So yes, you're absolutely right. Argobio was launched in 2021 based on initiative we had in mind for a number of years, and some others had it as well, including again BPI France with Laurent Artaud, who is heading the Enodia, the venture team there. The problem in Europe is still the same, and still needs to be not solved but developed, which is the lack of entrepreneurship in general and lack of entrepreneurs. In this industry in particular, but it may be true as well in other industries. So we try to address this capacity problem that we try to just develop more business and quality business in the biotech early science, early asset setting. So the statement is simple: is the European academic science is very good in biomedical research. It's world class, equivalent to what is in the US. Probably I won't compare it to China because China is growing so fast and so quickly that it's difficult to benchmark. But definitely the European academic biomedical research is still excellent. And so the question for us is just to grow more opportunities, translate more opportunities from this science and translate them, transform them into industry asset a bit more efficiently, a bit more often. So this is the simple mission of Argobio: translate this academic science from Europe into successful biotech companies. Some people call it the Dev Valley. It's a translation because you have first to identify the science, that then maybe the most difficult, challenging part of it is to negotiate with the TTO, who very often does not understand what you really want to do and has a little background into commercialization. But of course, it's much more than that. Translating academic science into industry is always a challenge because it's just two completely different worlds. Science per se, academic science is just making one experiment work, and industrial science is showing that you can repeat an experience and translate an experience into a different model, different animal setting, and eventually to humans. So it's a very, very different world and culture. And of course, you need very experienced and talented people to do so. And as a matter of fact, there are not so many people in Europe. Of course, Europe is not homogeneous like often, but countries like France in particular and other countries are just lacking entrepreneurs, experienced entrepreneurs in this industry. So of course, there needs to be more money. There is, of course, a well-known exposed differential of money quantity amount that is injected into this early stage translation if we compare Europe to US and more to China. So there is a need for more money, more people, more expertise, more projects, and Argobio is really important, like others, of course, but it is really important to allow more academic projects to be transformed into industry companies.
Argo Bio is not just a venture investment, it's what you call an operational venture builder. It's often compared to a US player like Flagship Pioneering, who we've had on the show before. What makes the Argo Bio approach, this European version of a startup studio model, makes it really unique? What makes it well suited to Europe, where you have all this innovation in the universities, but it just can't get out?
Yes. I think it's a combination of a number of elements. As you say, it's an operational venture builder, which means that it's not a fund, it's a company. So this makes already one feature of a very of importance, which is that it has a team of experienced people who are operational people, 25 people, led by a group of executives who used to be, who has experience in being CEOs of small to large companies, having experienced multiple fundings, deal making, IPOs, etc. So this is very important. Second element of importance in the team culture and spirit is that even though it is a group of entrepreneurs, it is a team, which means that and this is actually very important, that entrepreneurs often feel lonely and for good reason, because they are often by themselves. But in Argobio, one of the recipe for success is having a group of entrepreneurs working together, sharing difficulties, helping each other, and finding solutions together, and making actually decisions together to the benefit of Argobio as a company. So this was actually very important and created a lot of synergies among people who usually don't work in a group and in a team. And I think this was a little bit of a secret sauce of Argobio, perhaps. Third is again access to innovation, and we said that Europe has a lot to offer in terms of innovative academic scientists and innovative science. So it's a matter of identifying them. It's a matter of convincing people who often do not have the culture and the appetite for creating a company to agree to have this their science applied into a startup company, and that we will lead this process and they won't lead this process, which is also very important. Clearly define the respective role of each parties to make it work efficiently, which is different from other incubators or venture builders. We definitely want the entrepreneurs, the company itself, Argobio itself, and the key people in Argobio to drive the process, not to be driven by the PIs or scientific founders. Another element of success of Argobio is the role of strategic founders of Argobio, which, as you understand, includes Kurma Partners, includes BPI France, and also a few other partners, one being Angelini Pharma and Angelini Ventures, who were again founding partners. A second corporate group which was involved in the development of a project was Evotech, the German and global CRO company, who used to be a very strong partner to Argobio as well. And the fifth partner actually was an academic group, the Pasteur Institute, who is a very reputable academic group with a central activity in France, but have a network of institutes around the world who deliver world-class science and often is undervalued in terms of their commercial potential, which was a reason for Institut Pasteur to try and want to be part of this Argobio journey. So the role of these five strategic partners, investors, were very critical because they all had and all have strategic reasons to be in this journey, but with no conflict among each others, and pretty much synergistic reasons to be there. Some wanted more science to be transformed, some wanted just more opportunities to be sourced and to be funded once the company was formed. Some were willing to provide services to Argobio or to spin out venture biotech companies. And some wanted to have opportunity for early collaboration. Angelini as a representative of a pharma company. So all that was very complementary because everyone was coming with different eyes, different interests, different point of views, and were all very committed to the success. So it meaning that everybody were playing an important role, dedicated time, energy, excellent mindset to make this journey possible. And the success is always in the final product. And out of eight companies that has been formed out of Argobio, 3 has been seed funded last year, which is already a good success. And all these 3 companies were partially funded by some of Argobio's investors, strategic investors, showing the proximity, the high strategic proximity and the interest of the relationship. So far so good.
So far, so good. Tell me, Thierry, when you're deciding which of the scientific breakthroughs, which of the academic work that you're going to be investing in, that you're going to be building a company around, how do you make that choice? You're getting input from everybody in that system, from Angelini, from Pasteur, from your own experience, or are you taking some bets based on commercial interests? How do you make that call?
There is no secret and there is no recipe. Huh? What is always true is innovation. So Argobio is more in the business of first in class than in the business of best in class. And this is even more important today, where best in class are probably being generated to a large majority in China. So being positioned on first in class is very important, and strategically is probably the only way to be on this business on long term. So this is definitely the business of Argobio. So science needs to be strong. It will be generated in a lab that has a world-class expertise in their specific areas of excellence. So this is again something very critical, and that's it. Everything is possible based on this super high-level statement. So it can be a new biology, it can be a new modality, it can be anything. The only question we will be asking ourselves is, of course, can it generate a product eventually? And can we have resources in 2 years, more or less, and the money that we are planning to dedicate to that to make it fundable if we incorporate this asset into a company. And again, this does not mean something very precise, because you can get funding for very early stage assets if this asset is really transforming something. And for other assets, you really need to have, for example, drug candidates, qualified drug candidate to be eligible to VC funding. So every case is different. What is always true is science needs to be very strong.
Europe has sometimes really struggled, or historically struggled, with translating that great academic research into something commercial on the one hand, but then on the other hand, you've had, like you say, Elkedonia, Laigo Bio, Enodia spin out, get that seed funding. Do you feel like you're finding a way to change that dynamic from difficult to commercialize to having a pathway towards success?
Um, yes, maybe yes, yes. Maybe we have at least one recipe that can work. There is not only one recipe; there are others. But probably you need a recipe, whatever it is. It's nothing magical. It's nothing easy. And you need to have a combination of lots of know-how and resources to make it work. It is a difficult work for sure. So US has made it very efficiently several decades ago, uh, probably because they just put enough resources on a at the same geography. When you have centers of excellence like California or Boston, where you have the best academic labs, entrepreneurs, scientists, and money, VC investors gathered together, definitely it works. And this was something that didn't work very well in Europe, because everything was spread around. And there was probably a critical mass that was not achieved. Not enough money, not enough project, not enough people. Sometimes it has started somewhere and sometimes elsewhere, but at the end, probably it was just not sufficient. The collective effort was not sufficient. But over the years, Europe has progressed and reached something which is really of a high quality today. But it did it its way, which is definitely different from the US. And something that is definitely very different if we compare US and Europe is the way to project ourselves in the future. And this may be just said optimism. And the US venture investors and the US entrepreneurs will probably be less risk averse than what the Europeans by culture will be or would be. So this is something which is probably very important in the way to project ourselves in the future, whatever the business we are in, and which is actually a serious challenge for Europe for the next years and decades, just to be a bit more optimistic and accept the risk a bit more.
Let's talk a little bit about the areas you're focusing on now and where you look ahead then. What are the therapeutic areas? What are the sorts of technology platforms that you're excited about right now at Argobio, and why are you excited about them?
Argobio has made something that we were not able to do too much at Kurma, is to bet on platform technology, on technology platforms. So this was very nice. This was possible because we had time in Argobio to spend a couple of years and a few million euros in validating a technology, in testing different programs, and trying to select an attractive one that could become a lead program. So this was possible in Argobio and not too much in Kurma before. And this was very interesting and will be so in the future as well. So this is one thing I want to insist, because Argobio can do that, and it is actually very interesting. Test a new modality that needs some validation, that can be applied in different settings, different therapeutic areas, address different types of targets, usually difficult to address targets, etc. So this is one point. Second, in terms of therapeutic areas and modalities, the flexibility of Argobio allowed it to be very opportunistic. We don't have wet labs. We have a mix of talents and expertise in the team that start from gene therapy to small molecules, cell therapy, oligos, whatever, and covers the different therapeutic areas. So it allows Argobio, as it is for Kurma, to be totally opportunistic and not to focus on anything, because we don't have, for bad reasons, because we lack the specific expertise in one field or another. Everything is possible. So the underlying question is, can we predict the future, and can we predict what is going to be attractive to big pharmas who expectfully will buy or license a product in a few years? No, we can't. We don't know. So it's actually we are betting on a combination of very hot targets or hot sectors, and for which we, to some extent, hope that the big pharma guys will remain interested for several years. And on the other hand, select emerging sectors, emerging targets, emerging therapeutic areas for which we feel there may be, or there are just starting to be, a growing interest from the pharma. Of course, we're always talking about demonstrated clinical needs in all cases, of course, so that's obvious. Yeah, so a lot of bets, and things move and change over the years, especially during the first incubation years. We start with one idea. In 2021, we started companies very much focused on immuno-oncology. It was still the hype, the peak of immuno-oncology for the industry. But as you know, a few years later, the bubble was just totally stopped. So many of our immuno-oncology projects moved to immunoinflammation or even other sectors because the opportunities were elsewhere. But this is also where starting a technology platform company provide opportunity to shift from one indication or one therapeutic areas to another one quite swiftly.
You talked a minute ago about Europe maybe needing a little bit of that optimism that they have in the United States, a little bit of appetite for risk, maybe that Europe doesn't necessarily have. You know, when you compare the European and the US environments right now, does Europe have an edge anywhere, or is it really still trying to catch up?
Actually, I think it has been the case for the last 2 decades that Europeans consider themselves as a young junior partner, trying just to mimic what the US was doing very well. I think the world is changing so much now that this may be an opportunity for Europe to gain a little bit of its own autonomy. Being less dependent on the US, it's definitely still very much dependent on the US. But the world is changing, more balance between the Western world and the Eastern world. The growing role of China is, of course, very critical in the new organization of the world. But of course, the geopolitical orientation that the US is giving itself is very important too, to some extent, obliging Europe to take its own autonomy and being a bit more independent in building its destiny. So I think this may have a very strong impact for Europe. It will, in any case, have a very strong impact for Europe, but it may be beneficial, very beneficial, if Europe succeeds in showing its own way, a little bit less dependent on the US. This may be an opportunity. I hope Europe will take this opportunity.
And what about for venture studios like Argobio? Do you see that being replicated in Europe? Is there a role for studios like this to make Europe a little bit more mature, a little bit more globally competitive in biotech?
Yes, I think it's a very useful. It's a very useful tool for the European ecosystem, and I hope more will develop. And I first hope that the ones who are doing this business now will just be able to continue to carry on their activities. There are not so many, and many are just been started because of sovereign regional support. And often this is not sufficient. You don't develop this kind of capacity and expertise just because there is a strong willingness from the local authority to try and build a biotech ecosystem. This is not sufficient, of course. So there are a few venture builders around Europe that all have their own business model, and few are doing a very, very good job. So hopefully this will develop further and prove Europe can have their own model. And if there is an opportunity to grow more, there is a lot of business to be generated out of this academic, scientific ecosystem. So yes, there is room for that. But definitely it's going to be, it has always been difficult to raise money for a venture studio. The return on investment is not guaranteed. It's a long term, very risky. it can make good return, but it can make very bad return. So it's a risky business. And of course, in today's world, it's even more difficult to find people who will accept to make this investment. So I hope Argobio and others, there are a few others that are doing a great business. I hope these guys will still be alive and develop their activity in the next years. As you know, Argobio is now on the road and expect to raise a version 2 of Argobio that could be started in 2027. So, of course, I'm doing my best to help Argobio to raise this new product.
Thierry, finally, for people who are listening who want to learn more about Argobio or reach out to you, where can they go?
They can call you and call me, of course, and there is a website, argobio.com, so not argobiostudio.com, sorry. So it's very easy to find. There is also Argobio is communicated on the social network, so on LinkedIn and others. So quite easy to find, and of course in conferences.
We're always around. Thierry, it's been great having you on the show. I appreciate your time. Thanks for being on Beyond Biotech.
Thank you so much, Dylan. Thank you.
That's it for this episode. Don't forget to check out all the latest news and analysis at Labiotech.eu. I hope wherever you are in the world, you have a great week ahead. Thanks for listening, and I hope you'll join us again next time for another Beyond Biotech.